Ladies and gentlemen, did a head tilt stop a civil war in America? Today, we are joined by a man who was the National Security Advisor to former President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. Joining me tonight on the Newshour is John Bolton. 5 days after an assassination bid on the Republican presidential candidate today, Trump has spoken for the first time after his near-death experience. He recounted the whiz of a bullet and how it pierced his ear, quarter of an inch away from his head. Had he not tilted his head at the very last minute, the assassin's bullet would probably have found its mark. Tonight, the former US NSA and former ambassador of the United States to the UN, John Bolton, will explain the layers of security apparatus and the chinks in the armor of America's Secret Service. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bolton. Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much for joining me on Times Now and on the Newshour. Ambassador Bolton, what was your first thought when you heard about the attack on Donald Trump at the Pennsylvania rally?
I heard about it fairly shortly after it occurred, when there were news flashes, and turned on the television and watched what happened after that. I think that's true for a lot of people.
Well, so what was your first thought? I'm asking because you know, it was totally unexpected.
Well, the first was he was very lucky to have escaped more substantial injury or death. It really was very, very close. And then really to wonder who the shooter might have been, what the person's motivations might have been, what connections they had, that obviously might take some time to find out, but very important subject, obviously. And ironically, although the investigation has been going on now almost a week, still very little known, if anything, about what the shooter's motive might have been.
Absolutely. As a former National Security Advisor, could you please tell our viewers what layers of security protection the presidential candidates have, and would it have been easy to really go through those?
Well, not to get into specifics, but it's quite extensive. And in the case of Donald Trump, he's a former president as well, and they have Secret Service protection for life. And it's really, it's quite remarkable that this incident could happen, and everybody is asking how could it have, what went wrong. President Biden has ordered an independent investigation of the whole thing, and I think that needs to be done very quickly. I think people want to know what happened, and I think it's important to get a comprehensive report, but as I say, to get it quickly so that there's no room for conspiracy theories to grow. Some have already started, which is why this report is so important.
Well, many would say that deep state is a stakeholder in this U.S. elections and doesn't want Donald Trump to return to power. Is there any merit to this kind of speculation?
No, I don't think there's any merit to it at all. You know, I've been in government in different positions over 4 Republican administrations, and if there's a deep state out there, I haven't found it yet. That's not to say there aren't cultures within bureaucracies. There are government bureaucracies, private bureaucracies, you name it. But it's really wrong in a democracy to talk about the deep state. It's one thing to talk about it in an authoritarian country like China or Russia or others. But this is, you know, as best anybody can tell after 6 days of investigation, the act of the shooter himself, who was killed at the time and obviously therefore hasn't spoken. There's no indication of anybody else's involvement. Now, there may well be. The criminal investigation is continuing, and the investigation into the Secret Service and law enforcement performance is just beginning. But I think we need to sort of base our opinions on facts as opposed to speculation. Do
you believe this recent assassination attempt on Mr. Trump is a result of the political discourse that has been taking place lately, often incendiary in nature. I'm asking this question because apparently a week prior to the attack on Republican candidate Donald Trump, incumbent U.S. President and Democrat candidate Joe Biden had said, "We're done talking about the debate. It's time to put Trump in a bull's eye." And many people are saying it was an insightful statement.
Yeah. Well, I don't associate any kind of comments by politicians with the actions of this particular shooter or others. And I think it's important that the level of rhetoric be reduced. I think a lot of people have said that it's too harsh, too partisan. But, you know, some years back, Sarah Palin, who was the Republican vice presidential candidate in 2008, talked about putting a bullseye on one of her opponents, and the left in the United States was outraged by that. I didn't hear a lot of people getting outraged by Biden saying time to put a target on Trump. I believe he was speaking metaphorically, and it's you know, you have to be able to show causation that the statement led to a particular action, and I don't see any evidence of that here.
Well, we are now seeing reports that senior Democrat leaders, including Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, are pushing for Biden to withdraw from the presidential race. Do you think, or do you feel there is any truth to this? What will be the implications? And who would you consider a potential replacement?
Well, I do think senior Democrats feel that Biden should withdraw. I think the evidence is about as clear as it can be that he's going to lose to Donald Trump. And not only will he lose, but what we call down ballot candidates, senators, House members, state and local elections. The Democrats are going to lose a lot of people there, too. If their voters stay home and don't vote for president, they're not able to vote for the other candidates down lower down on the ballot, and a lot more Republicans will get elected. So I think right now the Democrats face a choice between what's essentially a certain loss with Biden and perhaps a likely loss with anybody else, but they'd still be better off replacing him on the ticket. The first name that always comes up, of course, is Vice President Kamala Harris, but I think many Democrats are worried about how good she's going to be as a candidate. Her 2020 presidential campaign for the Democratic nomination was a colossal failure. So there are many other potential Democratic nominees, governor of California, of Michigan, of Pennsylvania, that as a new candidate, as a younger candidate, not burdened with Biden's record in office, they may have a chance. It's hard to say. There's not much time to put together a campaign between now and the November election. But if they stay with Biden, I think they face certain defeat.
Well, what about President Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, the Republican vice president candidate? What is your assessment of him?
Well, I think he's basically a Trump clone, although ironically he and Trump disagree on certain things like the importance of Taiwan and protecting it from China. Trump doesn't really care about Taiwan. I think Vance does. I see Vance being an instrument of Trump's. He's young, he's articulate, bright, and I think Trump will use him in the campaign. They seem to have a good personal relationship. I wouldn't have picked him for vice president, but I'm not at the convention in Milwaukee.
Going back to the incident in Pennsylvania, it brings me to the issue to the forefront, and that is the gun culture that's been haunting the United States of America for a long time. 6 in 10 U.S. adults say gun violence is a very big problem in the United States. Most research says the same. What is your view on this? Is there a need for more stringent laws on the licensed guns rule that you have?
Well, I think there's a lot of room for more stringent scrutiny of people who get weapons and to take more seriously behavior that indicates people might be inclined to commit illegal acts with weapons. But I think the chance of significant change in American gun laws is close to zero at this point. I think you have to focus more on the individuals who might pull the trigger than just on the weapons.
Ambassador Bolton, in the recent past, we've also seen the assassination of Mr. Shinzo Abe. Before this incident, are there any implications here for India, the whole conversation on right-wing being on target?
Well, I wouldn't be in a position to say that. I hope not. Nobody likes to see public figures assassinated, whether by gun, by knife, or poison, or anything else. And so it's a lesson for all of us about what happens in politics. Dissent, disagreement, it's all fine. None of it excuses violence, and certainly not lethal force.
Well, Ambassador Bolton, United States of America, the world's oldest democracy, India, the largest democracy. What lessons can we learn from each other to make our democracies more vibrant and our leaders and citizens more protected and secure?
Well, I think the United States and India have a lot at stake for security in the world we live in. We're under enormous threats from a variety of places, the emerging China-Russian axis, terrorism from the Middle East. And so for two great democracies to grow closer together economically, politically, I think would benefit everybody and strengthen the security for both countries. And I hope whoever gets elected president here will try and make that a real priority.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador John Bolton, for joining me on the Newshour. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and getting insights into this incident in Pennsylvania. And we do hope the rest of the elections is at least violence-free, and there are fair elections and fair results coming out of this. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too.